Vandy taking on Georgia State. It's all about revenge.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into this college crossover edition of the Locked On Podcast Network. Joining me is David Schultz from Locked On Sunbelt. And today's episode, again, is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So download the app today. So I welcome in David Schultz. He joins me from Locked On Sunbelt. And this game, like I said, it's about revenge. And one of the things that jumped out to me about this game outside of the revenge factor, the obvious revenge factor, is that Georgia State runs a two-quarterback system. So, How can they use that? How are they using that? I watched some of the extended highlight games, and it just seemed interesting.
Well, it's very interesting. The whole thing is interesting because the two guys playing quarterback wasn't the guy who started the season playing quarterback. The guy who started playing quarterback is the guy who beat him last year, Christian Veilleux. He's not playing. He didn't play well in his first game. And then they went out and got TJ Finley. All right. TJ Finley seems to have been around longer than Diego Pavia. All right. That's I remember when he was at LSU. Yeah. All right. And then ended up at Auburn and his journey. Texas State. Was waiting for a minute and a half. Yeah. Western Kentucky. And now Georgia State.
That's insane.
So he got the start a couple of games ago, and I think they brought in Cameron Brown after that. And now they're doing both quarterbacks. Cameron Brown seems to have some pretty good statistics.
Now, how's that? How do they rotate? Do they just go by series, or do they kind of get a hot hand and just roll with the hot hand? How are they rotating that?
Well, it seems like it starts with TJ Finley, and then they kind of bring him in as relief. Is it what it appears? Yeah.
So do you think Brown has capability of eventually just taking over and just?
I think that's what's going to happen because he's played better than TJ has the last couple of weeks. So TJ was in there for about 2.5 quarters in the first game, and then against Memphis, and then he came in and played better, and then I guess they switched off last week, but. Yeah. I would presume that it's going to be Cameron Brown eventually because, his numbers speak for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And so Cameron Brown, what problems does he present for defenses more so than TJ Finley?
Well, it's really accurate. I don't think anybody can be quite as big as TJ Finley, right? He's a load to bring down. But, Cameron Brown these are same quarterbacks playing against the same FCS team, right? TJ Finley is 11 out of 18 against Murray State for 150 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Cameron Brown, kind of the opposite, 9 out of 11 for 101 yards, 3 touchdowns. So he's incredibly accurate, and I believe he was accurate in the game before. He's not small either. He's not TJ Finley, listed at 6'3", 238 pounds. Against Memphis, in relief of TJ, he was 8 out of 12, 139 yards with a touchdown. And so he can run it as well. Did score a touchdown on the ground against Memphis. That game was probably over by the time he came in because TJ kept on turning the ball over. So
that's not good. You can't turn the ball over. No. So, and Del McGee is somebody that's coming from a program in Georgia that that stuff's not tolerated. So that's I can see
it's not tolerated anywhere, right? You can't.
You can't do that. So it's going to be, I'm fully preparing for Cameron Brown. I watched the Murray State highlights or whatever, the extended version of that. And I really liked his poise in the pocket. I really liked how accurate he was. And that was perfect what you just said. So with these two quarterbacks, stopping that from a defensive perspective, I think it's very difficult because you have two different styles. And how much do they run? How much do they use the quarterback in the quarterback design run stuff?
Yeah, I don't think they do quarterback design runs. It just they haven't run a whole lot. Again, TJ Finley will run if there's space, but it takes him, he's kind of like that, diesel engine that once he gets it in gear, he could take on a linebacker because he's like 6'6", 260, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Cameron Brown's a little bit more fleet of foot, but again, still not a small dude, 6'3", 240. So, he may be a little bit, I don't know about faster, probably is faster, but maybe just a little quicker, a little bit more nimble than TJ. But no, I think they just run when they have to run. I don't think they're doing. Yeah. I don't think it's he's a playing two-way quarterback type of deal.
Right.
Not part of the offense.
No. Okay. That's good because I think from a defensive perspective on Vanderbilt's side is they can kind of contain those guys and really just kind of crush the pocket around them and just really restrict that space and box them in essentially. And they're going to force the ball to get out quick and maybe not on time or, maybe disrupt the rhythm of some of these throws. So the revenge factor does play into this game. Last year's game, of course.
I would think more than just a little bit because you go back, I'm sure Vanderbilt fans remember this and sort of Georgia State fans. Vanderbilt didn't lead that ball game until like the last minute and a half of the entire game.
Yeah, it was bad.
That was not a back and forth ball game. Georgia State almost blew it as Vanderbilt took a lead late and then Georgia State ends up winning it. But this was not like it was back and forth or Vanderbilt had the game won. Georgia State was winning that ball game all game long. I think they were ahead 59 out of the 60 minutes.
Yeah, it was something crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. And this was, from a Sunbelt point of view, this was before we all saw that Vanderbilt was still just Vanderbilt, right? Yeah. It's an SEC team, but they had yet to beat Alabama.
Yeah.
And then they beat Alabama, and then everyone's looking back at that Georgia State win, and it was like, wow, that was impressive.
Yeah, because that team became really, really good. But, the mentality of the team, I think that's kind of where things change. I think, from y'all's perspective, massive win, taking nothing away from that. Y'all outplayed us to a T. I mean, stuffed our run game, disrupted passing stuff, got us out of rhythm, defensively confused us. You had some good, Ted Hurst really hurt us, especially that last play of the game. Great running, like just everything with execution. Y'all, Georgia State did extremely well. And so to me, that woke up Vanderbilt later on because after that game, they had a double overtime loss to Missouri, which that truly was a back and forth, and they really should have won that game. And then they go out and beat Alabama, I think 2 weeks later, because they had a bye between Missouri and the Alabama game. So that kind of woke them up and said, okay, hey, we can't do this. And I think this year they've really, that's been the focal point of practices this week. Like Clark Lee's reminding him, hey, if you don't focus, if you don't execute, Georgia State's good enough to be able to sneak up there, or not sneak, but they're good enough to get you.
Well, that would be the thing. You would think that Clark Lee would not have to say a thing. He just has to put up the score.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, he took it upon himself. Yeah. He took it upon himself to do it.
Yeah.
But
there should be no necessary motivation here. There's no looking ahead. Don't get caught looking ahead because if you do, you see what happens, right? I mean, that's got to be the easiest 5-minute pep talk ever. Guys, we're not worried about the SEC because what we want to accomplish, and so far, right, Vanderbilt looks really good. That's an impressive win. You could beat South Carolina on the moon, but going into Columbia and decimating South Carolina, who was off to a good start this year, that's impressive. And so Vanderbilt has some possibilities of what could happen this year. You stub your toe and you lose to Georgia State, a lot of that's going to be gone.
Yeah, so that's going to be completely you're back out of the rankings. You're probably not going to be considered unless you beat Alabama and LSU, then you could get back in. But that's a tough gig no matter what. So up front, this is a different Vanderbilt team too. So up front, they have really beefed things up. That's where the biggest improvement has come, literally and figuratively. They have rebuilt both lines, and I think coming into this year's matchup, that's going to be the thing that really helps them steamroll through this game. It's a 26.5 point spread. They've got the revenge factor. All signs are pointing to a cover here for Vanderbilt, but again, they've got to come out and actually execute and actually go through and score the points and do the things that they normally do the things that they've done the first 3 games of the season. So that's been the thing for me. Pavia, I think, is going to galvanize this group and say, hey, look, we lost to these, he's going to have a few blankety blank words out there, and that's all they need. So,
right.
I mean, that's going to be a massive factor.
Well, they should dominate on both sides of the ball. I mean, Georgia State is 11th in rushing offense, and they are 11th in rushing defense in the Sunbelt. Passing, they can throw the ball a little bit, as we've discussed, but passing defense, they're also 11th, giving up 251 yards. All right, there's a reason that this game is almost a 4-touchdown spread.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're good, and Georgia State still hasn't figured some things out. Murray State's not very good at all. Then they're an FCS squad. There's some good FCS teams out there, and Murray State is not one of them. And they won going away, but it's still a little bit closer than you'd like to think. They still turn the ball over, and if you look at last week's game, I think it was 13 penalties for, was it 135 yards? I mean, it was
crazy,
a ridiculous amount of penalties. And so, you got to stop making those mistakes where you're shooting yourself in the foot. So, 13 penalties, 132 yards. I guess that's against Murray State.
Yeah,
what are we doing?
That's right. Rough. That's rough. And so So we're gonna talk about coming up next. We're gonna talk about the playmakers that could cause a lot of problems. Ted Hurst being one of them, and how he can affect this game. We're going to do that next. First, I want to talk about DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. It's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on the DoorDash Streaks. Okay. Every Sunday or every Saturday, DoorDash Streaks saves you more than every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For Vanderbilt, and I'm going to let you do it, Georgia. Well, you can do a Georgia State guy if you want. But for Vanderbilt, Miles Capers delivered in a huge way. He had a huge third quarter turnover that helped break South Carolina's last bit of momentum and helped Vanderbilt really take that 31-7 edge in Columbia. And when the pressure's on, he came through with no hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, this performance was not a fluke. Miles Capers is indeed on a streak. And just like Miles Capers delivered for Vanderbilt, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. Every time you save, every Saturday you order, stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/18.
If you want a Georgia State guy, that would obviously be Ted Hurst. 10 catches, 172 yards, and 2 touchdowns against Murray State.
And he also indeed delivered there. So DoorDash Streaks, save big. Now, FanDuel. I love playing FanDuel. This is my favorite time of year because the NFL season's here. College football season's obviously raging on. And FanDuel, make sure you're ready for kickoff with can't-miss offers. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So I love FanDuel for the player props. That's my favorite thing, especially on NFL Sundays. Building same-game parlays, those are fun. And I'll do that in live action. I'll build a same-game parlay in live action. That makes it really exciting, makes it really fun to watch. And it's quick and easy, and it's the best way to add a little energy to any game that you're watching, whether it's a baseball game, football game, whatever it is. It gives you a lot of juice. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, thanks for making Locked On your first listen. If you need a third listen after you listen to Locked On Sunbelt, after you listen to Locked On Vandy, David Schultz joining me here. Check out Locked On SEC. Check out Locked On College Football.
Gordy, you're propping up Chris Gordy in this?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess I got to. And you were on with my man Stephen Willis earlier this season. So
yeah.
So that was a lot of fun.
I go way back with Gordy. He's the best.
Yeah, Gordy's amazing, dude. He's hilarious. He's great. And he's good at running Locked On SEC. So we talked about the revenge factor, and that's obviously a huge factor in this game. But we'll start with Ted Hurst because that's the name that absolutely slaughtered Vanderbilt last year. We'll start with him, but we're going to talk about some playmakers that could cause some problems, kind of the direction of this Georgia State program under Dell McGee, and just kind of what problems can they cause offensively, what problems can they cause defensively against Diego Pavia. So we'll start with Ted Hurst. What is it about Ted Hurst?
Well, he can fly. He's really fast. He's also really smart, being on the dean's list and the president's list. So he's a really bright guy as well. And I don't think he gets frustrated because everybody's trying to stop him. right? He's going to be the guy, right?
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of weapons that Georgia State has. So he knows he's going to get double teamed, and he stays patient for that to happen. All right. And so he's not, like a diva. Throw me the damn ball.
Yeah, that can get really obnoxious. So
he knows,
like that.
Yes, he's well aware of his position of the team, and he's accepted that. It should open up for some other guys, but that seems to have been an issue. But Ted Hurst is the main receiver for Georgia State. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's got to be the guy. Obviously, you double. Obviously, you pay a lot of attention to him because you had that coverage breakdown. I think what happened with Colby Taylor last year on that game-winning catch is he thought he had safety help over the top, did not get it, played a trail technique on Ted Hurst, and obviously a great ball was delivered to him there for a touchdown. So you got to pay attention to that guy.
Yeah, maybe Rashad Amos in the backfield. He's got 26 carries, 140 yards. But they Branson Robinson runs the ball. All these guys have more than 4 yards a carry. Cameron Brown has run it 13 times. DJ Braswell has run it 14 times. So they seem to spread it out. But obviously, Ted Hurst is the main guy.
Yeah, and as they figure out kind of what they want to do with the quarterbacks, does that affect kind of how they scheme? Also, like, are they more run heavy with TJ Finley? Do they throw more down the field with a certain quarterback? That would be the thing. So Finley's got a cannon of an arm. He may not always know where it's going, and it may take a little bit of time for the arm to get going. But he's like Jamarcus Russell in terms of size and powerful arm. Again, Cameron doesn't have as strong as arm, but because not a whole lot of people do. But he is super accurate. So. We always hear that. And on a side note, I heard Tom Brady talking about his scouting thing. They always said he didn't have a strong arm. We watched him for 20 years. His arm looked fine to me. He didn't never seemed to underthrow Randy Moss when he had him. That's almost impossible almost impossible to overthrow Randy Moss.
Right. So I think Cameron Brown's fine. Maybe they just run some more West Coast type offense because Cameron Brown is really accurate. And when you can hit, wide receivers to try and get them to run after the catch. That's where all the yards are gained, right? That's how Louisville beat JMU. They hit a crossing pattern for like 8 yards, but he ran for like 60. So that ended up being a touchdown. I love the slant because if all you got to really do is beat one guy because the defender behind you is probably fallen and slipped, and then you got to beat the safety, and then that's it. And so they may do more of that with Cameron Brown than with TJ Finley.
Yeah, and I think that that kind of offense is really from a defensive perspective that's really frustrating because you have all these short passes and it's basically like you're nickel and diming, and if you have a patient offensive coordinator, that's really, really effective. So I think that's something we need to watch out for.
And this will be the other way. Do they pick up the blitz? When you blitz and you don't get home, usually you're in trouble, right? Mm-hmm. You're fortunate enough if that becomes a incomplete pass. But if they blitz and leave Hurst one-on-one, do they pick up the blitz? And B, do they complete the pass when it is, either a 50-50 ball or Ted's open because they decided to bring pressure?
Yeah, and Vanderbilt's been way more aggressive this year than they were a year ago. I think they were still trying to figure things out a year ago too as well, and that didn't help. You had a bad mindset. It was a weird environment because it had rained a whole lot, and the stadium was the lighting in the stadium was weird and off. It was kind of a weird time slot. They didn't really want to be there. Like a lot of factors factored into that, and so now I think you got a more focused defense, and you got a more aggressive defense, and so that's something that I think you're going to have to be careful with the aggressiveness sometimes because sometimes that can come to bite you.
A couple more wins, and Pavia is going to be your leading Heisman Trophy candidate right now, right? I mean, all the other guys, everyone's telling me how rich QB draft this is. Do we have the next starting quarterback for the NFL? I mean,
I don't see
Nussmeier going to start next year in the NFL? Drew Allar going to start in the NFL next year?
I don't see who they replace.
No, not yet.
Maybe someone might replace Geno Smith, but I doubt it. I don't know.
I thought he's got a pretty good sized contract. He's probably not going anywhere.
Probably not.
I mean, he had a bad game last game.
Yeah, he did.
He had a really good game the first game. So NFL is kind of week to week, but I don't know if any of these guys are superstars just yet. Plenty of them will get drafted, but I don't know if I'd rather probably go get the pass rusher or the lockdown corner or an Ohio State wide receiver or something along
Ted Hurst. I'll go get Ted Hurst.
Ted Hurst. You can go get Ted Hurst. Yeah.
Ted Hurst.
There's no reason why he shouldn't be, I don't know about first day, but he could certainly be, maybe first day, but second day, sure.
He can come and contribute right away. Absolutely. He's that good. And now defensively for Georgia State, like when Diego Pavia is under center and he's looking at this Georgia State defense, who are the problems? Who are the people he needs to watch out for? Where does he need to attack? Like what's going on with this defense?
Well, the defensive lineman Henry was second team all Sunbelt. So he's going to take up a lot of space on that defensive line, and he's hopefully going to let some other guys do their job. He's the one who's going to be stout on that defensive line. And if they can move him, great. If not, that's going to be an issue. But does he create space and pressure for everybody else? The problem is, you got to be controlled pressure, right? With Pavia, because he is nimble and he'll just take off and run right past you if you're coming in with reckless abandon. So that's the other thing. You want to pressure him, but if you get upfield too much, he's just going to run for 15 yards.
Mm-hmm. He's going to step right under it, and he's going to take that space, and he's going to eat up that space really, really fast.
Yeah.
So that's something that they need to watch out for, and just kind of slow rush him almost, like just force him to think back there, because sometimes I think he gets overexcited and over anxious, and he just thinks back there. And that pick he threw against South Carolina late in the game, it was one of those scenarios where he's scrambling around and he turns around and he thinks he sees a receiver and he throws it. Instead, he probably could have just tucked it and got like 2 or 3 yards.
Right.
And then they at least kick a field goal there. Maybe it's 34-7, maybe it's 38-7, like, something like that. But it's just those situations to where if they can kind of get him where he's running around back there, not just like take it, has a rush, steps up, finds a lane and goes, like running sideways and trying to change directions and trying to make a play. Like I think Georgia State has a possibility of stealing a possession there. So maybe that's something they look at.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan. That is much easier. I'll admit that's much easier said than done.
Way easier.
These defenders see quarterback, get quarterback, and it doesn't matter who. It could be anybody. South Alabama and JMU had that. A couple of times they rushed, and I don't know how they missed them, but all they did was Jackson Arnold sidestep a defender and then takes off for 10, 15 yards. Whereas if you do come in to control a little bit more, you can take him making a move and still be under control. So, again, that's much easier said than done.
Yeah, because those guys, like you said, are wired like that, and that's it's a tough habit to break. So, we're gonna make some predictions. We're gonna talk about whether or not this game is gonna be a cover. We're gonna talk about a couple other things next when we come back. Now, Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS top safety pick awards than anyone else as of just last month. So from footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details, and Mazda brings this same attention to how they craft every model. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. And with all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. So like our players, we sweat every detail because we make every move count, and impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move or be moved. All right, wrapping up the show in the words of the great Yogi Berra. It got late early. So we're wrapping up the show here. David Schultz, man, I appreciate you joining me. We're going to make some predictions here. Georgia State 26.5 point underdogs coming into Nashville. How do you see this game shaking out? Do they cover? What do you think?
Yeah, I would tend to think that Vanderbilt is going to be pumped up to play this game, right? And they're going to want, if I'm Vanderbilt, this is what I call a fourth quarter game. None of their starters should be playing in the fourth quarter, right? This is where we get that two depth work. If it works out for Vanderbilt, Pavia and company come out and play one possession in the second half just to see any adjustments that need to be made. This really should be to see if Vanderbilt can focus at the task at hand. Having said that, if you bring in the guys late, there could be a backdoor cover. So I'm going to take the backdoor cover, but just barely. I'm going to go 42-17 Vanderbilt.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, I'm taking Vanderbilt to cover. I think it's going to be a full cover. They just want to make sure they take care of business, get the two deep in. And I think that's going to, like you said, a fourth quarter game is a perfect descriptor for that. Empty the bench again. That would be the fourth straight game where they were able to empty the bench, which is impressive considering you played Virginia Tech on the road and South Carolina on the road, and you were able to empty the bench in both of those games.
Yeah, we're finding out South Carolina is impressive. We're finding out that win against Virginia Tech is not nearly impressive.
It's not, it's not. But given at the time, it was.
Well, I guess so. But ODU did the same thing. So good job, Virginia Tech, right?
So 26.5 points. I think Vanderbilt can cover that. I think they win by a solid 31 points. So you're looking at, if I'm doing the math correctly,
my understanding is that there would be no math.
Math test. Who told me about a math test here? I'm thinking like a 41-7 type game. I don't know if is the math right on that?
Yes. 41-10 would be 31.
Okay. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. See, math. It's not my thing. So 41-7, I think is your final. I think Georgia State will score fairly early on. They'll find Ted Hurst on some deep ball. And
Corey, have you noticed this on a side note? And I've done this with some other crossovers. It seems like a lot of teams score on their first possession rather easily, whether it's in the NFL. It happened with Houston the other night. It happened with the Chicago Bears did it their first week. South Alabama, I think, has scored on all three of their first possessions. And then all of a sudden, it's like the defense changes, or I think I was talking with Spencer McLaughlin from Locked On College Football. Once they get off script, it's not quite as easy as those first 15 to 20 plays. But it just seems that a lot of teams score first, and then it's almost like the defense is waiting to see what the offense is doing, and then can change according to that offense. And then the offense doesn't seem to make much adjustments the other way.
Yeah, it's weird how that happens, but like they work on that opening script probably all week, so they're very polished on that. Sure. And the timing of everything is probably really polished. The home team, a lot of times, if they get the ball first, they rip it down the field, and that's a lot to do with the environment. Like South Carolina, they got as soon as they touched the ball, they ripped it down the field and scored. Like that's because the home crowd juiced them up. They worked on the script,
and then what happened? Yeah,
and then Mike Shula had to do a little thinking. And Clark Lee and his coaching staff was prepared for everything. Like I think defenses kind of prepare and they say, okay, we're going to take an initial onslaught. That's fine. We can handle that, but we're going to make adjustments. We're going to clamp down.
Right. We're going to come out in our basic defense, see what it is, and then adjust to what they're doing.
And offensive coordinators by nature, they just panic. And they kind of when they get off script, they're like, okay, well, they stop that. Now, okay, I can't go to that. And then they start, and that play sheet starts to shrink a little bit.
Right.
And if you're too reliant on that play sheet and you're not very I think some of the best offensive coordinators don't really have much of an opening script. They have a couple of things they want to see, but a lot of them can think on the fly. A lot of them can adjust. Those are the ones that are typically successful. The ones that you see staring at the play sheet that's like a mile long. It's like post, like an 18 by 24 poster board with size 3.5 font. Those are the guys that they're sitting there just struggling to find something, and they're not getting in the flow of the game.
Right.
They're not reacting to how the defense is reacting, and they're not even trying to manipulate the defense. They're looking at, okay, it's 3rd and 8. So, okay, my 3rd and 8 call. Okay, my 3rd and 8 call. No, it's on this side. Okay, no, it's in this column. And they're trying to get the little microphone, and it's a huge operation. They get scrambled, and defensive guys can just react. And I think that's probably a big part of it. So
I agree.
It's interesting to dive into the psychology. I was a high school offensive coordinator I had to retire for family reasons, but for 8 seasons. So I was the guy that I didn't have an opening script. I had like 2 or 3 plays that I wanted to run in the first series, and if I could get to them, great. If not, I'm gonna go ahead and like react. And if you're reacting a certain way, I'm gonna flip the script on you. I'm gonna go a little bit chaotic and a little bit erratic situationally, so that I force you as a defensive coordinator to be scrambled. And if you're scrambled and I'm in control, I've got you on your heels. I've got a less talented roster. I've been an offensive coordinator in situations where you have a less talented roster. You kind of have to do that kind of thing.
Sure.
So I totally understand the psychology of the play calling and when defenses are they seem to have your number and you're flipping that play card over and over and over again. The best nights is when it goes into my back pocket, I don't even look at it, and I can just call right off the dome. So those are the fun nights. Those are the nights where things are clicking a little bit. And even then, sometimes the defenses will get you when you're doing that. But for the most part, my most successful nights have been where play cards in my hand and I don't look at it, or it's in my back pocket.
Right.
So that's kind of why I think like the Mike Bobos and the Mike Shulas of the world, I think sometimes can be a little too systematic, and that gets them into trouble. Right. I think you've got to have a little creativity. Tim Beck has phenomenal creativity, and he creates a lot of panic and a lot of communication pre-snap, and that can get teams in trouble as well. So there you go.
All right.
Coaching 101, I guess, right? Right. So, but David, it was great to have you on, man. And we got to do this again because, I hope Vanderbilt stays in the Sunbelt with some of their opponents, like when they go G5 here in the future, even with 9 conference games. I still think this game's going to exist. Don't know how, but I hope it stays in the Sunbelt. Sunbelt's a really fun conference. My cousin is going to play at Georgia Southern, so that's going to be a lot of fun. He's a senior right now in Oconee, but he's going to go down to Georgia Southern.
Well, you'll have to make it down to Statesboro. That's a pretty special place to watch a college football game.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, David Schultz, Locked on Sunbelt. Where can we find you on social media?
SchultzyCast, either on the Twitterverse or Instagram. We're all over that. And on YouTube, Locked on Sunbelt. If you want to hear it audio-wise, Apple and Spotify seem to be the most popular, but we're wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're missing out on Locked on Sunbelt, you're truly missing out. So, David Schultz, man, thanks for joining us. I'm Corey Burton, Locked on Vandy. You can find me in all the same places, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Apple seems to be the most popular for me. At Coach Burton 36 is the personal one. At Locked on Vandy on all social media platforms is the show itself. So find us, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. It was great talking to you, David. And until next time, anchor down.